Derek forged a chart. Reiko forged a plan. Betrayal bled into revenge when a veteran nurse turned the hospital's paper shield into a blade. Welcome to The Fallout Zone.
My name is Reiko. For over 3 decades, I wore the badge of a nurse like armor. I held hands through final breaths, steadied newborn cries, and kept my head calm when everyone else lost theirs. I wasn't rich or famous, but in that hospital, I was somebody. When Derek arrived, quick talk, slick shoes, power tied like a tourniquet, I assumed he'd be a manager who learned from the floor before changing it. He didn't. He cut waste, which meant time, which meant safety, and he smiled while he did it. The night everything broke, a patient's chart pinged with a fatal dosage. My signature sat under it like a confession. He lived, barely, because a night float intern caught a contradiction. Administration called me in at dawn. They slid the chart across the table. "On it, and we'll make this gentle," they said. I stared at the ink and felt 30 years drain out of me. "This isn't mine," I said. But whispers don't beat paper trails. They suspended me pending review. The review rushed by. The verdict crawled. Malpractice. Termination. HR escorted me past the bulletin board where my thank you notes used to hang. At home, my daughter tried to be brave. She asked about rent, asked about insurance, then stopped asking when my answers turned to silence. Shame sat with me like a second shadow. In the mirror, I looked like a nurse stripped of her purpose. Hands empty, smile gone. Appeal? I tried. The logs were pristine. Access times lined up. My badge had activated near the order. Derek nodded, sympathetic, while his eyes said, "Sacrifice accepted." Shame hardens if you let it. Mine hardened into attention. Nurses are trained observers. We chart what the body hides. So I began to chart Derek. I still had friends inside. People he'd squeezed with understaffed shifts and stretch goals. They texted me anomalies. A med cabinet count that never reconciled. A camera gap on 3 East during the minute an order changed. A printer queue that spat, then swallowed pages. I met them on my kitchen wall with tape and index cards. Patterns appeared like bruises. One nurse pulled an export from the EHR audit trail. Timestamps were clean, too clean. Entries written with the precision of someone editing, not caring. Another friend noticed the narcotics reconciliations were always resolved by Derek's team after midnight. Cost cutting doesn't clock in at 2:13 a.m. I remembered something the intern had said. The order's wording felt off. We write in fragments on the floor. Short, sharp. The entry that damned me read like a policy manual. I dug into older cases and found 3 more charts with that same corporate cadence. Same phrasing, same spacing, same typo in milliliter. A fingerprint made of habits. I packaged my findings and sent them to the Beacon, the paper that eats what institutions won't swallow. No signature, just evidence. 3 weeks later, the headline hit. Hospital Supervisor under investigation for reckless practices. Waiting rooms turned up the volume. The board announced an internal review. Derek announced he welcomed it. Of course he did, until the review started reading. Then the patient, the one who'd almost died, called me. He'd filed a request for his records, and a tech had dumped the raw metadata. I met him in a coffee shop that smelled like burnt sugar. He slid me a thumb drive and said, "I don't think you're the villain." In the metadata sat a quiet bomb. The order that bore my name was created from an administrator account at 2:13 a.m., then reassigned to me at 6:42. The IP address belonged to Derek's office. The beacon ran part 2. The hospital flipped from defensive to surgical. They pulled 20 of Derek's saves and found patterns: camera gaps, after midnight corrections, badge reader deletions that weren't actually deleted on off-site backup. He'd been sloppy because he thought no one would look. They offered me a settlement and a neutral reference. I turned down the money and demanded a public correction. My daughter cried when the statement went out. Reiko Tanaka exonerated. The petition the patient started passed 10,000 signatures in a weekend. Strangers mailed me cards addressed simply to Nurse Reiko. Derek lost his job, then his license, then the story he told himself about being the kind of man who wins. I wish I could say I felt triumphant. Mostly, I felt tired. There's a fatigue that follows fear, a tremor you don't notice until you set the glass down and see the water move. Trust, once cut, heals with a scar, but scars are reminders that the body answered back. Healing doesn't always come from medicine. Sometimes it comes from light, charting the infection until everyone can see it. Derek gave me betrayal. I returned the chart to its rightful owner, the truth. That was enough.
Thank you for watching The Fallout Zone. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.